Hi, everybody. It's Tuesday. I'm not normally around here on Tuesdays, but it's nice to be with you. And, once I nearly became very rich. And I'll tell you how. I We had a friend, and she was a very elderly lady in one of the churches where Priscilla and I were appointed. And our children were young at the time, our 4 children. And this elderly lady, she loved our children. Now, her husband had been an extremely, extremely wealthy man, and he had been a diamond buyer for De Beers. And they had been all over the world and traveled here and there, and they ended up spending 6 months in Europe, and then they'd come back when it was winter there, and they'd spent 6 months in South Africa. But her husband sadly died, and this elderly lady was very much on her own. And she befriended us. And every now and again, she would invite us to tea with all our children, and she would spread the table with cake and sandwiches and all sorts of goodies. And our kids absolutely loved it. The table was groaning. And we got to know one another very well, and we got on well. Well, one day, this elderly lady was meeting with a friend of hers. And the reason I know this is because this friend of hers was a friend of my mother's. And the conversation was reported. And she said to her friend, "You know what? I don't have any family anymore. And when I die, I would like to leave my money, all my money, to Peter and Priscilla." It was millions, millions. And this lady's friend, who was a friend of my mother, said to her, "No, you mustn't do that. You mustn't leave it to the minister. You must leave the money to the church." And so this elderly lady said, "Oh, I see. Yes, you're probably right. And that's exactly what I'll do." Well, I had to dig deep into my soul to forgive the elderly lady's friend. I've now let it go, and I've forgiven. But we could have been made for life. And that's how it happens. This is a time when people are holding on to their bucks because it's a difficult financial time. People are investing in all sorts of things. And some people who have invested in cryptocurrency have really seen their money go down the drain recently. And they will try all kinds of investments. Well, there was once a friend of mine who said, "Look, I want to give you a good deal. If you give me so many thousands," and I gave him some thousands, he says, I can invest in a pre-listing. In other words, before the shares go on the market for a mine up in the Northwest Cape." And I thought, oh, well, that sounds good, because once the shares are listed, they're going to zoom. It's a wonderful mine. Well, the shares were listed and they all went right down the drain, and I lost my thousands. The wealth of this world is so, so fragile and so unpredictable and insecure. Hear what Jesus had to say. Here are his words from Matthew 6, verses 19 to 21. "Do not store up for yourselves treasures on earth, where moth and rust destroy, where thieves break in and steal. But store up for yourselves treasures in heaven, where moth and rust do not destroy, where thieves do not break in and steal. For where your treasure is, there your heart will be also." Well, there's a lot to that. But the question is, what are treasures in heaven? Well, yeah, we could talk a lot about that, but I'd just like to mention one thing. And treasures in heaven are relationships. Everything that we see will eventually crumble away and vanish. The way Paul puts it, he says, what is seen is temporary, but what is unseen is eternal. And there are three things that last forever: faith, hope, and love. And the greatest of these is love. And so the treasure in heaven, when I speak about relationships, are first of all our relationship with God. And heaven begins right now as we put our hand into the hand of God and as we live our days with Jesus by the power and the love of the Holy Spirit. Everything else about us may die, but that is indestructible. It is eternal. It is a treasure in heaven. Our relationships with our loved ones and with our friends, to bring them close, to share the love of God with them, to care, to show compassion, to make them stronger. Those bonds are important to invest ourselves into, because those investments are eternal. And then our relationship with ourselves, to care for ourselves, to watch over our hearts, that they kept pure and that they kept right, that they kept in keeping with the love of God. And as we prepare ourselves for all that lies ahead, for all that God has in store for us, to be in the right frame of mind, to go home with Him one fine day, and to do those things that He calls us to do, because our relationship with God is built upon obedience. It sounds like a harsh word, but it's not. It's walking in step with God. And as we do that, we invest into the life of heaven, and we begin to experience its peace and its blessings now, even in the hard and dark days, as well as in the bright and sunny days. And so, watch your investments. Keep your eye on it. Watch out for elderly ladies. What they say doesn't always come true. May God bless you, and may you experience many of His treasures in the days that lie ahead. May God go with you.